When they had come near Jerusalem and had reached Bethphage at the Mount of Olives, Jesus sent 2 disciples, saying to them, "Go into the village ahead of you, and immediately you will find a donkey tied and a colt with her. Untie them and bring them to me. If anyone says anything to you, just say this: 'The Lord needs them, and he will send them immediately.'" This took place to fulfill what had been spoken through the prophet, saying, "Tell the daughter of Zion, look, your king is coming to you, humble and mounted on a donkey and on a colt, the foal of a donkey." The disciples went and did as Jesus directed them. They brought the donkey and the colt and put their cloaks on them, and he sat on them. A very large crowd spread their cloaks on the road, and others cut branches from the trees and spread them on the road. The crowds that went ahead of him and that followed were shouting, "Hosanna to the Son of David! Blessed is the one who comes in the name of the Lord! Hosanna in the highest heaven!" When he entered Jerusalem, the whole city was in turmoil, asking, "Who is this?" The crowds were saying, "This is the prophet Jesus from Nazareth in Galilee."
Thank you. This is the day that the Lord has made for us, because of us. It could be argued, out of all of these high and holy days, this is the one that is most human. Well, of course, you might think, this week is a divine and human encounter. In fact, we might argue it is the divine and human encounter. This is also true. But this Palm Sunday day is the most human day of the whole event. Next Sunday is God's Day. The event is God's, and we simply receive it like a gift that it is. Good Friday is the day that sin is exposed in all of its ugliness. Or it is the day when agape love is revealed in all its glory and wonder. Maundy Thursday is Jesus' day. I realize they are all about Jesus, but it is the day when Jesus tries one more time to teach by example and by word what it meant to follow him. But this day is our day. Yes, it is the day Jesus chose to make a declaration, the day he claimed the ritual and pageantry of the triumphal entry and of the royal enthronement. Yes, it is the day that he claimed the crown and the throne that was his from the beginning of creation. We don't want to take away from that reality, that truth. So if this was only Palm Sunday, then we could step back and let the parade pass us by, and let our role be one of waving branches and shouting for salvation, which is what Hosanna meant originally. Save us. Many take that route, focusing all of the energy on Palm Sunday's declaration and the festive potential of the triumphal parade. Yet somehow, somewhere within the time of worship, there needs to be at least a pointer, a hint of what is to come. There needs to be an understanding of what this declaration costs the one we call the Prince of Peace. When we created the event called Palm Sunday, it becomes an event that tells the truth about us clearly, as it tells the truth about God. What else could we do in the space of one act of worship to collide our full-throated shouts of praise and at the same time our bloodthirsty calls for a painful death? Hosanna and crucify him should not be in the same week, let alone in the same hour, except for the conditions of our souls and the transient passing nature of our faith. And to declare that that was them and then, and not us and now, is to miss the point of the remembrance of the event. We were there, or rather, Jesus, he is here, and this event is here. And one of the overriding questions for this day is, where do we stand? On this parade day, where do we stand? In the place of judgment, where do we stand? When he stands before us, bloodied and beaten, where do we stand and what do we say? Now, who wouldn't want to be in a parade? Who wouldn't want to receive all of the attention, the adoration of the crowds, the cheers and the waves, the throng lining the streets, wanting to be you? In that moment, you are the center of attention, the brightest star in a firmament, the man of the hour, the woman of the year. Do you think that was what Jesus really did? He was there for the attention, for the adoration. Knowing what was to come, did he just want to soak up a bit of honor before being subjected to the shame and suffering that was to be his lot? Who could blame him if that was the reason? And yet, it doesn't seem quite right that even here on this threshold, the one who would soon be on his knees washing the dust of the city streets off of the feet of those he called his followers, that he would be so self-serving on that first Palm Sunday. So many questions come to mind as we read this story. Was this all prearranged, or was it somehow mystical? Or did the disciples commit grand donkey larceny? If the crowd was really as large as Matthew says, then who was the whole city asking the identity question from the fringes of the parade? Or was this the first instance of a preacher estimate? And how did Jesus manage to sit on the donkey and its colt at the same time? Was the crowd drawn by some of divine balancing act? And did the homeowners lining the impromptu parade route complain about the crowd pulling branches off the trees? These all seem like very important Johnny questions to me as I read them more aloud. But more importantly, the real question was, did they get it? This was a message that Jesus was trying to send. Matthew got it. It may have taken him some years after the fact, but he got it. That's why he dredges up Zechariah's words to help us get the point. The king who comes, not on a war horse, but on a donkey of peace. Did they get it? They shouted Hosanna. That implies they got it. Hosanna translates as save us. So maybe they got it. Matthew says the crowd was large. Maybe they got it, or wanted to get it anyway, but then the city was clueless. Who is this? And maybe the city and the crowd were marching side by side. Maybe the crowd was large, but was made up of followers and city dwellers, some of who got it and many who didn't. Maybe they were marching along, waving their branches and shouting Hosanna, which scholars tell us it came to mean hooray or even howdy by that time, not the prayer of petition that it once meant. It is sort of like the word goodbye, which was originally a blessing, God be with you, but is now nothing more than just a wave. Their brows were furrowed, and they would turn to one beside them and ask, "Why are we doing this again?" And maybe the response would be a shrug. Maybe it would be, "That's Jesus, the guy from Galilee." "Oh, right," they would say, pretending to know who in the world Jesus was from Galilee. Did they get it? It's hard to say. Going back to Mom?
Mom's shop litter with her.
Yeah, Grandma Lori. Calling Grandma Lori. So did they get it? It's hard to say. One thing Matthew is clear about is that the disaster was right around the corner. If there was any hope that Jesus was using this event to soak up a little goodwill, it would be shattered by the very next verse. The parade wouldn't end with handshakes all around and a few high fives for a job well done. No, it traveled all the way from the gates of the city to the temple where Jesus overturned tables and knocked over dove cages. It ended with a rumble. The self-proclaimed King of Peace engages in an act of violence that left them shocked and confused. What peace was he announcing? What peace was he bringing? And if you're going to strike a blow, why not strike it against the foreign oppressors and not the economic machinery of our own people? Especially when the machinery will strike back. Wouldn't it have been better to keep a low profile? Couldn't he have just left a note, made a speech, wrote an editorial for the Sunday Jerusalem Times about the proper use of the temple? Wouldn't that have been better? Safer, anyway. Why did he have to provoke? All kinds of questions come to our mind when we pay attention to the parade on Palm Sunday. Questions that we can't even attempt to answer. This is instead a listening Sunday, an experiencing Sunday, not necessarily an answering Sunday. We need to come and hear what the parade turns into, to come and hear what steps are taken before he dismounts that donkey, to come and pick up a branch and walk along in this parade, to come and shout Hosanna. The same crowd that shouted Hosanna on Sunday began to shout Crucify him on Friday. How much more human can we be? Yet this is the day we are revealed. This is the day our hearts of hope are broken. This is the day that the Lord has made. Amen.